This is Josh Hart here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by Frank Smith here in Nottingham today. Frank, big fight week, first one in the UK of the year. You excited for this one?
Yeah, very much so. Massive night of boxing. You know, DAZN, the global home of boxing. We start in Nottingham, we go across to Las Vegas. What a way to start the year in the UK, though. You know, Dalton Smith, a real star of British boxing. You know, a huge future. He's had a long time out of the ring. Big win coming for him. You know, a great undercard. Harry Scarf, Conor Walker, building up into a nice, exciting fight. Ellie Scottney defending her belt. So a great way to kick off the year in the UK, 100%.
Starting it off in the best city in the UK as well here in Nottingham.
Yeah, your home, you know. Exactly. You asked before we started, we'd do every show here now just because it makes sense for you.
Yeah, exactly, perfect. That's fine by me, Frank. It makes it a lot easier for me. Obviously, Dalton Smith for the European title this weekend. It's the final belt, I guess you could say, before you look at moving him on to World Honours. Is that the plan? If all goes well this weekend, we'll see Dalton Smith push for a world title this year?
Yeah, look, it's always been the focus for Dalton. He's wanted to win all these belts, and the European was that last outstanding one. You know, the one thing about Dalton Smith is he's ready to face anyone. He wants the biggest fights. He wants the world title fights. You know, when before Liam Parrow was going to fight Richardson Hitchens, we were looking at that fight for Dalton Smith into a world title shot. He'd fight Devon Haney tomorrow. He's number 2 in the WBC. You know, the big fights are all there. They're all there for Dalton. And EBU belt was something that he wanted to win. We get that on Saturday night, a huge win, and he gets back that momentum going. He's had a long period out the ring. You know, last boxed in March, unbelievable win against Cepeda, who many people thought was too soon for him. World title fights after this, that's the focus, and I believe we'll see it in 2025.
Looking around at the Matchroom stable, one of the fights I've seen, obviously, you've got Dalton Smith, who you're going to be pushing for the WBC, and Jack Carroll, who you're going to be pushing for the WBO. Do you reckon within the next 12 to 18 months we could either see a world title fight or a world title unification potentially between Jack Carroll and Dalton Smith?
100%, that's a fight that could make sense. You know, Jack fights Arnold Barboza for the WBO interim. Potentially, if Teofimo Lopez moves up or decides something else prior to then, it could be for the full title or ultimately at some point elevated to the full champion. You know, I believe Dalton Smith becomes WBC champion at some point, whether that's in his next fight, whether that's later this year. So that's a huge fight that could take place next year.
And just moving away from this card, Liam Smith back to Matchroom now. How long has this been in the works for?
I've been speaking to Liam and Anto for a long time. You know, we've got a great relationship with Liam. We've had some great nights with him. I always believe he would have stayed with us if the opportunities were there. You know, if we could have done certain fights, he would never have left. You know, we've got a very close relationship, not just with Liam, but with the family as a whole. We've been talking to him about signing all the way back to a potential fight in January. It didn't happen. You know, we got it over the line. I think he's still got a lot left to offer. I don't think the last performance against Eubank was him, being honest. And I also don't think the Eubank performance in the first fight was Chris Eubank. Just, you know, so it's not taking anything away from either of them in either fight. But I think Liam Smith's got a lot left to offer. I think there's big fights to be made for him in a division at 160 where there isn't a ton of names. You know, when you look at the division, there isn't tons of names out there. So I'm excited about what's to come. We've got a big fight announcement for him soon. And looking forward to it.
The rumoured fight that I've seen going over social media the last few days is Aaron McKenna on the Eubank Benn undercard.
I like that. We should try and make that.
Is that a fight that you would consider?
We would consider that 100%. Obviously, we're working with Aaron McKenna as well. You know, he was in our prize fighter series. You know, so 2 Matchroom fighters together, that would be a great fight if we can make it.
Almost seems like that could be the one. We'll see. But
almost does, according to the forums.
Speaking of Eubank Benn, obviously now it's finally signed, sealed, delivered. The way I've been saying to people, I think everyone in boxing kind of sound like a broken record, just constantly talking about it over the 2 years. But it is here now. How delighted are you just to have it over the line, first of all? Yeah,
look, it's something I've personally spoken about a lot. It's been something I've spent a lot of time and energy and focus on over the years because I believe it's the biggest fight, you know, outside of probably AJ Fury, the biggest fight in British boxing. And it's a fight that we needed to make happen, and I'm glad we finally got it over the line. You know, I've got sort of in the middle in some ways, but may the best man win. And like I say, my focus is all about making great fights and great opportunities for fighters, and this is what this is.
How much easier was the process of making the fight once His Excellency got involved?
Yeah, 100%, because it takes away the aggravation of, I should get this split, I should get that. It's just, let's do a deal. You happy with your deal, yes or no? Don't worry about it. The biggest thing in life, I say, is don't worry about what someone else is getting. If you're getting enough money, don't worry about what someone else is getting. And look, His Excellency's involvement obviously takes a lot of ego, arrogance, whatever you want to call it, out of the way. And it means great fights are happening. So long may it continue.
A lot of talk has come out of that, seeing the rehydration clause for Eubank Jr. at £170. Ben Shalom came and said that it was a very late addition. What was the reasoning for putting the rehydration clause within the contract?
It wasn't a late addition, firstly. It was something that had been spoken about even prior to the involvement of, something that was outlined. The word rehydration clause is a strange way. It's second day weighing. Ultimately, it's what we have a lot in boxing. It's not just in this fight. IBF fights, all of them have them. So it's not something that's such a shock outside of the sport. The reality is Conor Benn's coming up from 147 pounds. He's making a big jump from 140 to 160. I understand his reasoning for it. Chris is not a huge middleweight. I don't think he put on. Again, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not in Chris's team, so I can't tell you 100%. But I don't think he gets much bigger than that in reality. And also at the same time, Chris wouldn't do it if he didn't want to do it. Just being honest with you, like if Chris wasn't accepting of it, it wouldn't be there, would it? But I think we have to drop the name of rehydration clause. It's a second day weigh-in that has been seen a lot in boxing, not just in this fight.
We've seen some reports from the Times recently saying that Sky are unsure as to whether they're going to show Eubank versus Ben. What do you make of reading those reports?
I don't know. I can't really comment on it. It's not. I don't have any involvement with Sky. That's obviously Ben Shalom's job to do, not ours. We've DAZN are our broadcast partner exclusively. And I read the article like you did, and that's for them. I don't know whether it's true. I don't know whether it's false. Something you'll have to ask them on. My focus was making a massive fight, and we did it.
And one of my colleagues spoke to Frank Warren yesterday. Obviously, we know that there was the ongoing lawsuit between Frank Warren and Chris Eubank Jr. over some comments made back in October. He said that he is still going ahead with it now. How big of a distraction do you think this could be for Eubank Jr. heading into the fight?
I don't know. These things take a long time. I'm sure Chris will have people dealing with it on his side. And I'm not sure whether it will come to light or be anywhere near where it needs to be by the fight. Just being honest with you, I know we've been involved in legal cases previously, but I don't know. I'm not involved with Chris Eubank Jr. I've no involvement with him. Don't promote him. Don't manage him. So I couldn't tell you, to be honest. Again, a question that probably would have to be directed to them.
For yourself, where do you sit with this fight? Who do you lie with going into it? Who are you backing?
No, look, I can't. I'm going to be completely open. My view of who wins, how someone wins, is irrelevant. Yeah. I'm not a trainer. I'm not their manager. I'm a promoter. My job is ultimately for fighters to deliver the best possible opportunities for fighters we represent and the biggest possible fights. Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn is, as I say, right now with Tyson Fury retired, the biggest fight in British boxing. And you've done the job. In terms of the fight itself, I'm not going to sit here and say who I think wins. I have a close relationship with Conor Benn. I have ties with Chris Eubank Jr. obviously. It's not may the best man win. And look, it's going to be a fun build-up. It's going to be a great fight. My job is to make sure the event and the fireworks and the tickets sell and all of that. The rest of it, they get in the ring, they have a tear-up. Good luck to them.
Just moving away from here and looking at the heavyweight division, we've seen obviously Tyson Fury announce his retirement. We know there was big talks of Fury versus AJ fighting this year. If that fight isn't to go ahead now, what route do you look at taking for Anthony Joshua to become a three-time world champion? Yeah,
look, AJ is obviously, regardless of losses, Anthony Joshua is still the biggest name in the heavyweight division. Like amongst Usyk, like if you're looking for names in the heavyweight division, you talk about even now Alexander Usyk, Anthony Joshua, and Tyson Fury, even with his retirement. There's a ton of fights out there for Anthony Joshua. And now we've got to make a plan of what's next. I think Anthony Joshua is going to want the biggest fights possible. I've said in multiple interviews, I love the Deontay Wilder fight. There's a narrative there, there's a story there. For too long, boxing has been about wins, losses, etc. Boxing's got to be about stories and about fights that make sense, that sell and deliver an audience. And that is a fight that, regardless of prior results, is huge. And a fight that I would love to see.
Just my last one then. Again, one of my colleagues spoke to Dan Raphael recently, and he said Joshua versus Wilder wouldn't be a good fight, and that personally, and he believes in a lot of other fans' eyes, they wouldn't care about the fight. What do you make of those comments from Dan Raphael?
Yeah, look, I think sometimes there's a big divide between like hardcore boxing audience and what the casual sporting audience want to see. And the casual sporting audience want to see fights between people that there's a narrative, there's a storyline, will be a great fight. You know, heavyweight boxing, anything can happen. We've seen it time and time again. People are written off time and time again. You know, Dan is a hardcore boxing fan at the heart of it. I'm not saying that's not important, by the way, but at the same time, we're talking about a sport that attracts a broad audience of millions and millions, and that is still a fight, in my opinion, that is huge.
Do you believe we see Joshua versus Wilder within the next 12 months?
Not sure. I'm not sure. I think Wilder's having a fight. You know, I still think Tyson Fury comes out of retirement. You know, he's retired 5 times so far, so he can retire a 6th if he comes back for this, and it doesn't make any difference. I believe it's too big of a fight not to see.
Well, Frank, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time.
Cheers,
and
mate.
I'll see you later on in the week.
Perfect. Cheers, Ben.